What's up, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of Just Another Horror Movie Podcast. I am joined by, of course, the movie fanatic, Jonathan Fox Ross.
Good afternoon, good evening, and good night.
Very, very lovely. And as well as Benny Frozen Fire Radford. Very good. And of course, I am joined by a new guest on today's podcast, Andrea Acevedo, aka twitch.tv/Alphacado.
Thank you.
Today we're going to be talking about Hellraiser 2022. So, we're going to start it off by talking about some non-spoilery thoughts. I'm going to give you some basic information, give you the rundown on the movie, and then we'll transition into spoilers a little bit later, because I want to make sure that we can talk about it without spoiling the movie for people at first, because it did just come out, because Hellraiser was introduced, or it was released on October 7th, 2022, but it was screened first at Fantastic Fest earlier last month, the 28th of September. Directed by David Bruckner, who is most famously known for The Ritual and The Night House, which are both movies I'm not personally familiar with, but those seem to be his biggest credits. It was produced by David S. Goyer, Clive Barker, who originally wrote the novella The Hellbound Heart, in which Hellraiser, this movie, and the series is based off of, as well as Keith Levine and Mark Toberoff. The screenplay was done by Ben Collins and Luke Petrowski, and it is starring Odessa Azion, who plays Riley. I hope I got that name right. Jamie Clayton, she is billed as the priest or Pinhead. Goran Visnijic, who plays Roland Voigt, who is I believe he is a Serbian actor. I could be wrong about that, but Brandon Flynn, who plays Matt in the movie, Riley's brother. Drew Starkey, who plays Trevor, and Oifi Hines. Aoife? Aoife Hines. Would you say Hines or Hines? Hines. Aoife Hines, who plays Nora. The music was done by Ben Lovett, who worked with Bruckner on The Night House, and cinematography by Eli Bourne, who is most famously known for Super Dark Times, which is a 2017 movie. Again, another one that I'm not super familiar with. We've got some people coming in here who are probably getting pretty big breaks on this movie, because this is a little bit more in the public eye. And of course, distributed by Disney, platform distribution, because it is a Hulu original, and the production companies include Spyglass Media Group and Phantom 4 Films. This movie runs for, I think it is exactly 2 hours, and man, this was quite the journey to go on in this movie. I'm not familiar with Hellraiser in general. I've seen Pinhead before, because he is like an iconic slasher, horror movie legend at this point. I do have a fun fact here. With this reboot, all primary Golden Age slasher icons of the 70s and 80s have been remade. Leatherface in 2003, Michael Myers in 2007, Jason Voorhees in 2009, Freddy Krueger in 2010, Chucky in 2019, and now Pinhead 2022. So, I've got some other fun facts, but man, I want to get some general opinions first from you guys. I want to go ahead and I want to start with someone who maybe did not super well, you know what? How about you go first? Just go ahead. Tell us your thoughts on the movie. No spoilers, just basic opinions, broad.
Got you. Okay. I'm personally not a horror movie fanatic. I enjoy some of them, but they get me really stressed out sometimes, and this was one of those where I was watching it, and the cinematography I thought was really good, all of the effects, the music, and then I was watching it, and I was like, ooh. So, that's probably the sign of a good movie, but I personally, just don't like really gory things, and I would say it definitely had a lot of that. So with that said, it was very intriguing and very interesting, but not for everybody, I would say.
Jonathan, hit us with it.
I quite liked it. I enjoyed it better than the originals, which is probably pretty blasphemous to people that love the originals, but I'll stand by that and support it with my own opinions. as we go. I think that acting wise, pretty much top to bottom, the acting was fantastic, which is, since I'm mentioning it, one of my issues with the original two movies, which are really the only two that I will harken back to at all. Um, and I thought that there was a nice underlying, but not in your face, like kind of allegory on addiction, and I liked that quite a bit. I don't know how much to avoid spoilers or what is going to be considered spoilery, so I'm just going to keep it at that for right this second.
Perfect. Benny, hit us with it.
Hey, so I genuinely did love the movie. I will say that I genuinely did. Of course, it took me a little bit longer due to the fact that I started very late last night and then I ended up watching the whole thing again today. There were a lot of things that I loved about it, which we'll talk about during the whole entire podcast. But I genuinely would say it was definitely one of my favorite movies recently. Overall, it was a really great movie. That's all I really have to say right now.
Okay. Okay. Um, I'm realizing I don't think I introduced myself. I am, of course, Corey Riley, aka twitch.tv/SileyGames, your host for today. I'm going to go ahead and give my thoughts. I really enjoyed this movie. It can be hard to watch it sometimes if you are troubled with, like, seeing gore and, like, very violent things because it is pretty gory. I don't know. I wouldn't probably say I wouldn't probably say that it's the goriest movie I've seen. I'm trying to think of because I've probably seen some slashers that were a little bit maybe. I don't know. This was pretty gory.
That's probably the goriest movie I've seen.
Yeah. I I can't think of any other movie off the top of my head that comes to mind that may top this, but it was pretty violent. But I won't say that took away from it because I really did enjoy this movie. I thought that the plot was really compelling. The writing was very interesting. Like the way that the direction that this story goes in, I think, as a viewer, really like captivated me, and it had me interested in what this mystery was, what this thing, because not super spoilery because it's in the trailer. It revolves around this puzzle box, and as you can see in the background of the shot here today, I've got the puzzle box on screen, and this like mythos that they build around this puzzle box and this like religion that has to do with the puzzle box, to keep it relatively vague, I thought was just very, very intriguing as someone who's never seen Hellraiser before. This was my first take on the whole franchise. So being able to be introduced to it this way, and I feel like from what I've heard that this movie dives a little bit deeper into lore as opposed to just like gore for the fun of it, I think I don't know if that's how people would describe the original. I'm sure it serves a purpose because I can't speak to that because I've not seen it. But this, I felt like the gore wasn't just for like shits and giggles in this movie. It felt like it showcased the violence and nature of these people's religion that had to do with the puzzle box. So I don't think it was unnecessary because that's basically what their entire life and way of living is based around. Jonathan, you look like you wanted to chime in. No,
I was just listening rather intently.
on the because I can't speak to the original Hellraiser, but I don't. You saw the original, right? At some point,
Yeah, and then I rewatched the second one this morning.
right? I don't know how if this movie is like a what would you rate this on a scale of 1 to 10 on the gore factor compared to the other ones? If you were to give it a number,
People say that the other ones are gorier, but I don't disagree. But I think that like if you're watching the originals now, that the gore is a bit. Some of it's really good and some of it's really dated.
Right.
So it's like a mixed bag. Like one of the big things in both the first and second one, which is called Hellbound, which is a play on the name of the actual original novel, which was Hellbound Heart. They both have two separate characters that show up without any skin. You just see like the muscle and stuff like that. And that's the reaction that you give until you see it. And there's something about it that is not as off-putting to me as one would think. Like, I
Okay.
imagine in real life, a person with no skin looks a lot more disgusting than what they do in these movies. To me, it was, and I don't even necessarily think it's because I'm jaded. Like, they're skinless, but they're not like drenched or covered in blood
Right,
necessarily.
right,
One of them
right.
kind of is, but it's not their blood. It's not as gross as I think people make it out to seem when they say that the two or that the new one is not as gory as the first two, which are largely the two that people acknowledge. But I think that the gore in the newer one is placed in a way that makes it more painful to me, I guess. The
Yeah.
other ones don't shy away, but uh, I don't know. Maybe it's just because they haven't aged as
Right.
well. And like I
Okay.
said, it's a mixed bag. Some are good, some are bad. But I think this one's pretty consistent across the board. I did see somebody say that because they are kind of the embodiment of gore, the Cenobites. Somebody did say that they felt the Cenobites maybe didn't look as real to them as they could, but when I go back and look at the originals, um, I don't necessarily think that they look real either. So I
Wow.
don't there's
Well,
not a lot of legs for that.
see, I personally, I would argue with that because with that person because in my opinion, I think a quick little fun fact here: Cenobites. That word comes from someone who lives in a monastic way, and monastic has something to do with a way that monks would live to with their religion, like their whole lives are devoted to that religion. So the word Cenobite has to do with that the fact that these people are completely and 100% devoted to their religion, which happens to be sensation, we'll say,
Mhm.
is kind of the theme of this. So quick little fun fact there, but the prosthetics I felt in this movie were incredible. Like I feel like the prosthetic makeups, because most of it I think was like legit, like actual makeup. There's sometimes you can tell it's a little CGI in certain shots throughout the film, but I think for the most part this looked very, like, all the Cenobites like looked very real to me. And instead of like clothing, it looks like they opted to do in the original movies, they had them like bound in leather and stuff like this. All of the Cenobites in this movie are clothed in like ripped and disfigured versions of their own skin. It's their own skin wrapped around them in such a way that it clothes them. And man, is it disturbing. It's out of this world, man. Like I think if I think it would. I know horror movies sometimes get scrubbed for like awards and recognition and all that stuff, but I feel like if the prosthetic team is not acknowledged for this, it is a big ol' snub on their part, because I feel like they went hard on this movie.
Yeah.
And I think it was really cool that all the Cenobites had like names. I'll get into them a little bit more once we get into spoilers, because I have them all named out, and I think their names are very cool. Let me see. Quick little. Well, actually, no. Benny, go ahead and I want to pass it
No,
back to you. Yeah.
yeah, no, definitely. So I would definitely agree with you. Like, I would say I may have only seen, I think I only saw maybe like two scenes that really could show CGI, but not like anything crazy, not anything
Mm-hmm.
crazy, but just like you could tell instead of like prosthetics and everything. But like,
I think I would agree with
oh
that.
my gosh, I remember my first time seeing like them come out and everything, and I was like, oh, okay, wow, this is really, really, really cool. So like, I just loved how you could see like their skin and everything. Like you said, like their skin literally looked like it was like dressing them in a sense. It was really cool seeing that, but it was also really cool seeing like, I don't know, like how they were moving and stuff with that too. But of course, there's some stuff that I will get to later on with
Yeah.
that, like a little bit more in depth. But basically, it was just really cool seeing that, and I was like, wow, okay,
Yeah.
that was really kind of like piqued my interest.
I thought their movements were really well done as well.
Oh yeah.
How do you feel about that? Like the way that
Yeah,
they moved around.
yeah, I agree. I thought their movements were really good. I don't know, like, Are we doing not spoilers?
Okay, hold on. Okay, I'll go ahead.
Yeah.
Let me just get a
Yeah.
couple things out of the way, and we'll go into spoilers. A couple more fun facts for you is that Doug Bradley, who is the original Pinhead, says that he is blown away by Jamie Clayton's Pinhead portrayal. He loves the way that Pinhead looks, the way that the sparkles on the pins, the shine, the way that the neck trinket is. He's very, very impressed and gives his full blessing. And one more thing is that cues of the original score from the first two movies are included in the film. I, of course, did not pick up on that because I've not seen those films, but I think that's always very cool when filmmakers decide to pay homage to the original source, no, not the original source material because that's a novella, but the legacy movies before this. I thought it was always a really cool little nod. And then, of course, one thing is that the filming took place in Bulgaria and Belgrade, Serbia. So none of it was shot in the United States. So, yeah. I think we could probably go ahead and get into full spoilers. Crap, I don't have a spoiler thingy. But we're in full spoilers, ladies and gentlemen. So if you're watching this, spoilers, run away if you haven't seen the movie. If you're listening to it, go check the movie out. It's really good. It's worth a watch. I personally, before we get into the spoilers, I personally would probably give it like a somewhere between an 8.5 and a 9 on my scale. I love the movie. I think it was definitely worth the watch. I'm a little intrigued as to why it wouldn't be put into theaters because I feel like it definitely could have been a great theatrical release, but don't know why. I don't know. But I think it should have been because it deserves to be seen on the big screen because it's damn impressive to watch some of the effects in this movie because they are good. They are good. Jonathan, what's your overall rating before we get into spoilers?
I'm about to watch it again this afternoon. So this is a loose awarding. I'll say an 8, a strong 8. It could even be higher, but I'm settling on an 8 for now to kind of temper my own thoughts here.
Okay. Benny?
Yep. I actually really do agree with that as well because I was actually going to do the same. I definitely would give it a strong 8 right now. Maybe there's some stuff that I could definitely rank it a little bit higher because I know it's like in the upper 8, but I would definitely say like it is a really strong 8 right now.
Okay. And Andrea?
I feel like I'm actually gonna give it a 9.
Really?
Yeah, I thought it was pretty good.
Dang.
Yeah.
Even though you don't really love the way that it makes you feel.
Yeah.
So, because you still think it was
Interesting.
a very well made movie, though. So you're being objective, setting aside the way that it stresses you.
Yeah.
As a movie critic, watching it and taking it for what it is.
And if you're thinking about it and it's making you feel that way, you're watching it and you're like, I feel like that's also a sign of a well-made movie that it's good enough to make you feel that way.
All right. So there you have it. Go check out Hellraiser 2022. It's on Hulu right now, and then maybe if it succeeds, you give it some extra views. Maybe we'll see a smaller theatrical release if they decide to do something like that. That would be lovely.
I think they definitely should have done that. I mean,
Yeah.
This movie already had a fan base since before anybody saw it.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I don't know what decision led them to not put it in theaters. Probably a deal that they inked X amount of years ago. But
Probably.
everything. First of all, I don't even know if the first two were released in theaters. My knowledge of them is not that vast. They don't. One of my other issues with the first two is they feel almost made for TV, but because of the contents there within, there's no way in hell, no pun intended, that they were made for TV. Which is ironic then that this one feels much more cinematic to me, but was literally made for TV. But everything after the first two Hellraisers, at least, I believe was straight to video. And there's been 6 or 7 of them, including one directed in the early 2000s by Scott Derrickson of Sinister, Doctor Strange, Black Phone. He did one way back in the day. I think it was maybe his first like movie that
Cool.
he was given the rights to make, and it was poorly received, as were almost
Shame.
all of them after the first
Yeah.
one. But
Well, I hope this one shows that there is some something you can do with this franchise that makes it like it's just so well done, and it feels like everything that they did was for a reason, and the artistic direction is just something that you don't see in too many horror movies. It's like it felt like everything served a purpose, and I just feel like that reboots can be done well. And if they are cared for and loved for, and these people are passionate about the stories and the characters, then I think that reboots can be done well, even though they are more often than not done well. So hopefully this brings us a brighter future to reboots in their time, because I guarantee you this won't be the last reboot that we see. So I want to go ahead and go into full spoilers now. Before we get spoilery opinions and talk about stuff really in depth, I do want to break down the Cenobite names. So we've got the Chatterer, which is played by Jason Lyles. And man, we can talk about each of them a little bit, because I know Jonathan has some strong feelings about the Chatterer. If you want to go ahead on that
it's
one.
cool. And of all the Cenobites, I don't know if they were all what's the word I want? I don't know if they were all replicated like one for one from the original. I know there's at
Some of
least
them.
one I saw. Yeah, I know there's at least one that like I haven't seen in the newer. The Chatterer was one. I just saw him this morning, and I will say, I guess this gives a little bit more credence to the argument that people or a few people have had about gore or whatever. I did think that the Chatterer in the original one was a little more gruesome looking. Like the newer one, the way they did his face, where it's like this like flat colored skin that comes to like here on his head, and then it's a different color, and he's got his chattery teeth that like. For those of you that haven't heard it or have had nightmares about it for the last 2 days, the original one very much makes the same noise, but his is all like the same skin, and it's much more like greased and oily and shiny, so it looks a little bit more like don't you don't want to touch that. Not that you want to touch the other one, but like it just looks like you're gonna get something on you if you touch the old one. Yeah, I think Chatterer is. What is that? Oh, yeah.
Then he already knew that.
I was like, wait a second, am I hearing something?
Yeah,
Oh, you're
what is
playing
that?
something.
Who?
Oh man, I think that was coming through your. I was like, what is that noise? Because I heard something come through someone's mic.
No, it's I don't know. Where is that? It's not me.
Is it Benny?
Oh, you know what? Hold on a second. My apologies. You
Okay,
were
I
hearing
was-
a little sneak peek of Hellraiser.
I was like,
It
I
sounded
think
like it
this
was
might be Hellraiser.
Ignore
but
that.
Chatter and Pinhead were the two that I definitively could recognize between the different generations, and Chatter I think was the
Yeah.
creepiest.
Yeah, Chatterer definitely on there as one of the ones that they brought back. Benny, you have any thoughts on this little?
Yeah. Yes, I do. So when it comes to Chatter in general, I don't know. I loved how he looked in this. I really did, because I did watch the other ones as well. I love how he looks in this, but I will definitely say, because we're in spoilers right now, right?
Yeah, we're full spoilers.
All right, bet. Perfect. Literally, in the way that he got basically like ripped to shreds, I could see in that. I can see in that there was not as much gore as they may
Ew.
have wanted to see, even though I thought there was a lot. Oh my god. Oh, no, yeah, no.
That is
No, no,
more
no.
gruesome than what we got there.
So glad
Yeah.
it didn't look like that.
Yeah, exactly. But like this one was like more like, okay, I see it walking down the street. I'm like, okay, that's terrifying. If I saw that, I promise you I would be pissing and shitting so Fast. That is terrifying. That is
Yeah.
terrifying.
I'm glad it didn't
But
look
yeah.
like that, dude. Yeah, can we
Yeah.
talk about
I'm
that
very
real quick?
glad.
How it got ripped apart
Oh.
by the chains, dude. That shit was gnarly.
I
That
was not expecting that.
Oh, when it
Dude, prepare-
sacrifices or not sacrifices,
sacrificed,
it
yeah.
gets stabbed, so it gives itself up to the whatever the god that they keep
Leviathan.
alluding to, Leviathan,
Yes.
yeah, and just like, yeah.
So that was one of the CGI shots for sure. That
Yes.
one definitely did not like as soon as it like stepped back, it was no longer the actor. It definitely looked like CGI, but it wasn't bad. It was pretty good CGI. I think all of the effects in this movie were really good. We'll talk a little bit more in depth, but I want to real quick. Do you have anything extra to add on the Chatterer?
No, but I will talk about Pinhead.
You want to talk about Pinhead?
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna save that
Quick,
one
can I
for-
throw something in on
Yes.
Chatterer real quick?
Yes,
Because I'm looking at this picture of the new Chatterer. It appears that the difference is that the old Chatterer, there's just the skin's weird all on the head. It looks like they cut the skin off here. The new Chatterer, the reason it looks like there's two different sets of skin is not because there's two different sets of skin,
Because it's
but it looks as if they took this skin, pulled it back, and then pinned it to the back of its head.
Yeah.
And so its
Yeah.
teeth are the only thing you see.
That
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah, especially with the shot that we see at the very end of this movie on how Cenobites are created.
Yes.
Yeah,
Oh my gosh,
I
yes.
want to talk about that a little bit later when we get into more special effects. But we'll talk about the Pinhead last. I want to talk about the Weeper real quick because this is just a quick one. The Weeper is the one who is like walking around, like you hear the crying a little bit, but it's also the one that like near the end she stretches her arms out and they like split. And she's like walking around with like the
Yes.
I thought that was very cool. I don't have much to say about this one just because, yeah, exactly. Much to say because it's like this one didn't play a huge part in the movie. So I don't know if either. I thought it was very cool design though. It's like also missing like part of the chin, I think, and these big round eyes that look like they've always been crying. So very cool.
Yeah,
though.
here I go. Here's
Very
a list
cool,
of them
though.
all. Okay.
I don't
I'm
know if
literally
anyone,
looking at
yeah.
this same list, I'm assuming.
I thought they were all like they looked good for what they were, of course, but none of them really stood out to me. Besides
Pinhead.
Yeah.
So
Like
I
they
think
were just there.
I think for me, I think Pinhead, of course, it has just this iconic look. But I also think the Gasp, played by Selena Lowe, I think is the one where like her like lungs are kind of like ripped open and like stretched all the way up to like the top of her head, and she's got like this triangular, angular look. And she says one of my favorite lines in the movie to this person who used to work for the main antagonist, Roland Voight, who is in possession of the puzzle box in the beginning of the movie. We'll talk about that a little bit more in depth, but she comes up as she's taking this woman who used to work for Voight, and she's giving all these apologies. She's like, "I'm sorry for what I've done. I'm sorry. Please forgive me." And she leans real close to her, and she's like, "Save your breath for screaming." And chills, dude. Like I don't know, man. Like she's really good in that role, and her prosthetics really stood out to me a lot. It's just I don't know. I think these actors and actresses who got to play these Cenobites really gave it their all because they were fucking moving and like, oh man, like.
Is this the same one that's with the brother's boyfriend at the end, or that's a different one?
Yes,
Yes.
with the
Okay,
wires, with the wires.
So I do like that one as
Yeah,
well. I thought
yeah.
she's pretty good too.
Yeah, and it's like it's because there are moments where they stop going for these people when Riley has to like speak with them because they really are just on a mission. It's not like, yeah, they're doing this because it's like their religion and they love they can't distinguish pleasure from pain, so all sensation is sensation to them, and pain is probably the most powerful of the sensations. So I think that's why they devote themselves to this. But they're not just like they do that, but they're not like needlessly going after these people. They are on a set mission. Like they are focused on certain people who are marked with the box. Because when this puzzle box is being solved, this knife comes out, and that's how it and stabs whoever is using it, typically. And that's how they get marked for sacrifice. But it's not like they're just going around killing random people. It's those people who are marked because that is their mission, that is their religion. They're very organized in the way that they do that. They're not like Michael Myers, who's just running around slashing people, or like especially in Halloween Kills, but it's not aimless, is what I'm trying to say. It seems very organized.
No,
And
yeah, they have a point to doing it. It's just that they're like their end objective for doing it isn't
fucked up.
like ethical. It's like their morality is warped.
That's
Yeah.
that's a good way to put it. That's a
Yeah.
good way to put it, because they, like I said, they can't distinguish pleasure from pain. Their religion is sensation, so pain is a sensation. And yeah, I thought the gasp was probably one of my favorite ones, besides like the scare factor of the chatterer, like coming down the hallways and shit, just chattering away. Anyone else have anything to say on her?
Well, real quick, kind of encompassing all of them in a way. We didn't even touch on, which feels like a decent preface, the box itself
Yes.
and how it has different configurations,
Right.
dependent on, it seems their take is dependent on which Cenobite's about to come visit you, based on whichever, they're not sins, but whatever sensation or configuration they see, or is next within it, which in the original one, the box, it didn't go into all those different shapes. There was also multiple boxes, and it really only went into like this almost like starburst type shape, and then you like twisted it and shifted it back.
It's a different configuration, right?
Yeah. But even in this particular like starburst looking one looks a little bit different. This was a much more creative, which, it helps to have like 35 years of looking at the same idea and how to make it better to do so. But yeah, I liked the way that they did the box thing a lot, and I liked that there was like a singular box, and it was a thing that like was sought after and protected, and I thought that really lent to the lore a little bit.
Yeah, it added more to the plot, like, because I feel like it wasn't just like kill, 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 kill. Everything had like a purpose. There was reasoning behind it. And this puzzle box that Voight was going after, like, it was the thing that he wanted the most, more than anything else. And to call back to the beginning of the movie, he has this person come in who is curious about the house that he's in, or in the specific area, and he grabs this box and he starts solving it. And he walks out, and he's like, it's a puzzle. He's like, go ahead, check it out. And then he's like, if I solve this, do I get a prize? And he says, I do. And he gives this smile that is just so, like, malevolent, and it is scary and so creepy. This guy, what was his name? Goran Visnich, if I'm saying that probably wrong. I thought he did pretty good. I thought he was a very menacing character. And then later on in the movie, of course, we get to see him in a different light. He's kind of like weaker and wounded now because of the prize that he got from this person solving the box. Yeah, they have a warped, like you said, a warped morality system, and it kind of lends to their prizes being very warped as well. Real quick, the Ace Fix, the one who is like completely covered in its own skin, who turns into a runner near the end of the movie, was also very cool. And the way that thing moved around, like it was bound like a mummy, like wrapped in its own skin, and the skin peeled around it. Ugh, so gross, man. So gross.
I forgot about that one till this morning.
Yeah.
Doesn't it, before the run thing, doesn't it like take the asphyxiation piece off, or am I misremembering?
So it breaks off, and then it runs, and then it gets caught in the door frame, and then as it's like stretching through, the stuff that's around its face like breaks and rips apart, and you get to see its face. But yeah, why don't you go ahead and lead on Pinhead?
Oh, okay. Well, I feel like
You skipped the mother.
Yes.
The mother?
You skipped the mother and the mask.
I was right about to say those two.
Oh,
yeah.
the mask is the one that's like, it's just like the face skin. There's
Yeah,
no
there's
burn
no
in it, right?
skull. Yeah.
That comes near the end of the movie. Go ahead.
And then the mother was, I
Same
think,
type of thing.
just like briefly shown.
I don't remember that one. Hold on.
Yeah, let me find a picture of the mother. I'll hold it up.
She
for everybody.
walks in. She walks in as Colin was like running by. She starts walking into the doorway, and it was like towards the very end of the actual movie and everything. That was when she walked in. She was there for that, and then one other time. I don't know when the I don't remember when
Oh,
the
I
other time
see.
was, but
Yeah, there's not even a
literally
super
very
solid
short.
picture of her alone, but
No.
yeah, Benny's
Yeah.
talking or on the right.
Hold on. How can I open image?
Which to me
Right. Oh yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Right, because it's got like it's like kind of pregnant, right?
exactly. Yes.
I forgot about that one because that is very brief, right?
she has like a veil or something.
Yeah,
It does kind of look.
that's
like
what I
it,
would assume. Either that or like some really weird hair. I don't know.
Yeah.
But like,
remember that it's all that everything about them is just skin distorted in
Yeah.
a
well,
way.
yeah,
So it's like it's probably just
maybe like
probably just a
thin
thin
skin.
layer of skin.
Right.
Yeah,
Oh
gross.
gosh.
Man, these things look so cool. Like I think I've seen the pictures of the previous ones, and I like these looks a little bit better. They seem a little bit more like menacing because there's just something about those things being clad in leather BDSM gear that isn't just as isn't as terrifying to me. But I think all these designs are very cool.
I
Very
feel
very
like
cool.
they look like they were put in like Marvel suits, but made out of like skin and muscles and stuff. So they're like disturbing looking, but kind of futuristic.
Worst superheroes of all time.
Yeah.
But they probably think they are heroes, if that makes sense.
Right. I think what they see themselves as are devout followers to the Leviathan. People who
Yes.
are like who are just perfectly like they are in line with the way the Leviathan thinks and acts, and they are just servants. I feel like so they probably do think they're serving their master, so they probably think that they're doing everything just perfectly right.
For sure.
But yeah, so awesome prosthetics on all the Cenobites. I think that was super cool. Really adds to the movie. I think if they were all CGI, it would not be as compelling, not be as interesting to look at. So I'm really glad that they went with prosthetics here, for the most part, anyway. On the same vein with the prosthetics, the special effects in this movie are fucking awesome, man. Like the fact that one thing that I wrote down early on in the movie is when Riley is in the playground, right? Well, maybe I should give a little bit.
I want to talk about this.
Okay, I'm gonna backtrack a little bit. I want to give a little bit of a rundown on the plot, a little bit of the characters, so that way everyone understands what we're talking about. I know if you're in this point, you should have already seen the movie. But basically, it focuses on Riley, who is a junkie. She is a recovering drug addict, a pill user, and she's staying in an apartment with her brother and his roommate and his boyfriend. And that's kind of like the apartment dynamic there. And she's got a boyfriend named Trevor. It's kind of the cast of the characters that we've got there. Mostly, you've got, of course, Roland Voigt, who is this kind of big, like, rich, not philanthropist, investor type. Yeah, not philanthropist. Who is a really fucked up person, and he uses his money to get things that he wants in a really fucked up way. He's got, like, sex dungeons in his estate and shit, and it's very, very, very messy and fucked up. But
I also wouldn't say that, what's his name, Trevor, is her boyfriend.
yeah. Riley's boyfriend? Yeah, definitely.
It's not her boyfriend.
Yeah, it is.
They
She
credit
thinks
him
so.
as such in even the Wikipedia, which I kind of had the similar opinion. I was like, I thought they were just like
Situation
close or something. Yeah, they're a situationship, but it does say that
so.
they're boyfriend girlfriend in the
Interesting.
description.
Huh.
Well, they didn't. I feel like then they didn't really make that note in the movie.
Because of that. I mean, it starts. We get introduced to Riley in a sex scene. I'm pretty right. Is how it
Yes.
starts
Yes,
between Trevor and Riley.
Yes.
And she says something like, "I love the way I love the way you make me feel," or something like that. And then he says, "I love you," and she's like, "What did you say?"
Yeah.
And then abrupt end to the sex scene. So that's kind of why you were like.
Well, yeah, because that happens, and she's like, "What? Like, leave. Like, let's not talk about it right now." And then when she's talking to her brother after this, she's like, I don't want you to see this guy. And she's like, okay, I won't see him. Like, even though she, of course, does.
Right.
But they're not. It's not implied that they're dating.
Like in a relationship.
Yeah.
Okay. That's a fair point. But yeah, so they've got the situationship or whatever then going on. And then the only other character I think is super important to the plot is probably Selena, who is in the movie. At the beginning of the movie takes place 6 years prior to the main events of the movie. We experience a time jump there, but it starts off with Selena, who is working for Roland Voight. I keep wanting to call him Richard for something. Dick Voight. And he's got this, she's working for him as like an attorney, I think she is, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Taking care of some things for him. And she procures this box in the beginning of the movie and brings it back to him. Then there's like this big party at the estate, at Voight's estate. And this guy meets Selena at the bar, and they talk a little bit. And then he ends up, this guy, I think his name is Joey, that she met at the bar, goes off into the main, like, museum piece area of Voight's estate, and he finds the puzzle box. And that's where the whole exchange about I get the prize comes from. And this dude gets absolutely obliterated by chains, and he is screaming like bloody murder, because that's what it is. As Voight looks up to the sky and calls down the Leviathan, the god that he wants to commune with to earn his prize.
Right.
And the entire time, this dude is just screaming off camera mostly. And then there's this one really interesting shot where the chains finally pull him up into the air, but it's focusing on Voight instead, so he's in the background. It's all blurred out, but you can see like his shape being pulled apart by the chains. And man, is it gruesome and impressive on this guy's part how well he's acted pretty damn well off screen there. So shout out to that dude. I don't have his name readily available, but good for you, uncredited actor at this point right now.
Great screams, dude.
Yeah, great screams. Then it jumps 6 years later, and we get introduced to Riley and Trevor. Have that whole thing with the sex scene, and then we get to meet the roommates and everything.
Right.
And we find out that, yeah, Riley is in a 12-step program trying to get off these pills and struggling with addiction. And her brother is super overprotective about, like, what she does, who she sees. And he's very, like, cynical about this thing going on with this new guy. So that causes like a rift between them already, besides the fact that she's a junkie and he's struggling with that and she's struggling with that, and like sets them apart at odds with each other. That he just wants to take care of her, but her argument is that he just wants to fix her to make himself feel good. Which is a very interesting concept, because if you've ever known somebody struggling with addiction and that sort of thing with pills, hardcore drugs, stuff like that, if you've ever known someone like that, it is a very tough dynamic and situation to be in for not only the person struggling with addiction, but the people you love close around you as well. It can be a very, very tough situation. I think, not to get too deep into my personal life, but not me personally struggling with addiction, of course, but people close to me and in my family have, and seeing this it portrays it pretty accurately. So kudos to the filmmakers for kind of nailing that, and not really necessarily focusing on the fact that Riley is a junkie for the entire movie. It's just part of her character. It's not like...
Well, if you remember, they said she was like sober for a while.
Yeah.
Like something like, did they say 6 months maybe?
I'm not sure.
I can't remember, but it had been a decent amount of time where it's like she wasn't on pills until a certain thing happens.
Right, but I think the whole thing where there are people who just want to fix people as well is also very true. So there's really great perspectives on that whole situation, I think, throughout this whole movie. So, like I said, kudos to them. But then Trevor brings this whole thing where he's trying to do this little heist, and he's trying to break into this shipping container with Riley, and he plays this thing because, spoilers, Trevor is not who he seems. But they do a pretty damn good job making him seem like he's a good guy. Like, I'm not relatively, besides the fact that he's like stealing shit and stuff. But like, he cares for Riley. It seems. It really does seem like he cares about Riley, and he believes the things that she's telling him throughout the movie. But they break into the shipping container together and they find the puzzle box. They're disappointed because they were looking for money or whatever, but they find this thing, and then I forget exactly how it plays out, but for me, in my viewpoint, like my memory, I feel like it goes from this to like there's a scene in between. Is this the argument? Right, she comes back really late that night, and
Yes.
Matt and they get into a screaming match. Right. So she drinks. I don't know if because she's a pill addict, so that's not her main vice. But she drinks with Trevor that night, and she comes back drunk, and then her and her brother get into a screaming match, and said, "Get your shit out of here," and Riley leaves. Then goes to this horribly creepy playground after she unfortunately breaks her sobriety and takes these pills that she originally threw on the ground, but then, of course, addiction is a very powerful thing. She goes back and picks these pills up off the ground and takes them. Oof, just it's stuff like that is tough to watch because, like I said, if you've known people who struggle with addiction, it's pretty damn accurate. Like, they do literally whatever they can possibly do to get that. If they are succumbing to the addiction, they'll take pills out of shit for all you care. Doesn't matter. Because that pull is so strong. And sometimes some of that stuff is harder to watch than some of the gore, in my opinion, because, like, that's real shit. And it's like, because I remember Jonathan, so Andrea, Jonathan, and I watched this movie together. And I remember Jonathan had a visible reaction to the pills being taken. He's like, "Ah, shit, girl, come on." And it's like, it really is like that. Like, sometimes you can get a more visceral reaction out of something realistic, like succumbing to addiction, than some of the hardcore gore that is in this movie. So I think that's really powerful tool that the filmmakers used. I thought it was really effective. But she ends up in this playground with the puzzle box, and unfortunately she's high now, so she doesn't know what is real and what is fake. And then we get a fucking awesome scene here, though. So she's on this like carousel thing in a really creepy playground, and she's messing with the puzzle box, and she's messing with it, and then a knife pops out, but it misses her hand, so she doesn't get marked by the puzzle box, and she falls onto the she's high as fuck, so she falls onto the carousel and it starts spinning. And then we get this awesome shot, some really fucking killer cinematography here of on this carousel, like our perspective is on the carousel looking out as it's spinning, so the entire world around us is spinning. And as it's spinning, there's this music building, and then we see a creature, and she like stands up, she like sits up straight and is like, the fuck? And then I think it's the gasp that comes in, right? If I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure it's the gasp. But
yes, it is. Yes, it is.
And then Pinhead is there as well, I believe.
Yes.
But the gasp comes up and says that the blade was meant for her. You said you had something to say about this scene, right?
Yeah,
Andrea?
I really liked this scene. It was like one of my favorites of the movie, I would say. I thought it was really scary when I was watching it. It was very interesting because, as you said, you can see when it's spinning around and they show you the shot of the box in her hand, but then it like zooms out and you see her on it spinning and you see the circle. And then later on, like once she's talked to the Cenobites, she like gets this circle in her chest out of blood and she's bleeding, and it's like everything they like start connecting. Her brother ends up getting stabbed because she ends up telling her, if not you, then another. And this kind of...
The priest, the Pinhead says that to Riley.
Yeah.
If not you, then another.
Right,
Choose.
exactly. And I think this ends up being really important to the movie because there's multiple times where she has these really big decisions that she has to make, and it's like whether she keeps the box or she throws it away, or whether this person is gonna die or she's gonna die or somebody else. And this scene, like, it was very creepy because you get introduced to like this whole world that you hadn't really seen before, because when you first see the scene of the guy with the chains, you don't get to see the Cenobites in there.
Right. Yeah.
So now you're like, what is going on? And then it comes from the dark. There's like very like low lighting, and it's just very terrifying.
And blue, lots of blue in this movie. I know the poster is actually red, but I think there's like the only red in this movie is blood. And then maybe that dungeon underneath Voight's like museum room I think has red lighting. But most of this movie I think is blue, which is interesting because it's like moody and very like somber.
Well, yeah, I thought the lighting, like the blue lighting, worked very well, because something that I told him the other day, not related to this, but about lighting, is that when you see red lighting, it's like shocking. It's like an end. Like something happens, and you see red lighting, and that's all you're thinking about. It's like it cuts it. But versus like you see blue lighting, and it's like gloomy and moody and dark, and it's like leading you up to something, and then it happens, but it's continuous. Like stuff keeps happening, and that's kind of what you're getting when you're seeing this, versus when you see that other red light at the end. It's an ending, like something else big is happening, if that makes sense.
Right, like because in that dungeon, that's where Trevor ends up getting sliced apart like a friggin' ham, dude. Like the gas wraps these like the wires that people in like the Cold War era would go behind and like choke people with. It's like that type of wire, but it's like all over his body, and she like pulls it tight and literally just like rips him apart. It's
right.
It's gnarly, and that's all in red.
And Trevor was the last one.
And Trevor ended.
That was it. So it like gives you like, you see that and you're like, oh my gosh. And that's like the ending of that.
The sacrifices.
Like, those configurations.
Yeah. It's very cool. It's a very cool idea, especially to play with the themes of the color. I thought that was really cool. I want to talk a little bit more about that moment when Pinhead is moving the box back to its I think original configuration or something. I don't know. But
At the end?
No, in the beginning, when she's in the playground, when Pinhead is in the playground with Riley, and she's like swirling it back to like the box configuration. So that way it's like back to its normal thing, and then it eventually changes once it stabs.
Right, someone
which is Matt, stabs Matt. But I want to talk about this point where she's circling the box, and then the circle comes up on her chest, like you were saying, and then it explodes, and these chains shoot out of Riley's chest and right into the screen, and then the perspective is that it goes from the playground into Matt's bedroom, her brother's bedroom, and it literally grabs him in his bed, four chains, and pulls him up and wakes him up, and then he's stood up, and he's awake now, and he's sat up, and he's completely fine. There's no chains on him, but like he envisioned that, like he was dreaming about that, and then like he felt that because he was like, what the heck? He touches himself to make sure the wounds aren't there. I thought that shit was cool as fuck. Like that was awesome. Like transition, like editing, and like really, really cool special effects there. I thought that was one of the standout moments of the movie, in my opinion. I don't know, Jonathan. I'm trying to remember because there was a moment something happens in the movie, and you like fell out of your chair. It was so crazy. I don't remember what moment that was though.
Yeah, I struggle to remember it as well, but I feel like it was maybe the spinal cord part.
Yeah, I was thinking that was what it was too.
But I was also floored by one of the earlier kills because of the way that they filmed it. So creatively, their choices, the editing was really good. But this is traditionally not. Also, it should be said, this is traditionally not a filmmaker that makes things that kind of. I guess this could be accused of having a bit of a slower pace at the beginning, but largely everything he has done. Ritual, watch on Netflix. What's the other one? Night House. Watch it on HBO. But both kind of slower. I think that as far as spooky season goes, Andrea, those are two movies that you could definitely probably get on board with. So The Ritual and The Night House, hold Corey to watching those with you. But
cool.
but he has more of an indie background, and so he kind of, I get, it looks like he was given the freedom to exercise that creativity here.
Right.
So the editing is really good in some of these kills, and so I
Yeah.
know that was something that multiple times I was like, man, I wish more horror movies. Not that all there's too many horror movies that their killers have this sort of creativity to begin with, but I hadn't really seen. I may have said out loud when we were watching it, I haven't seen kills edited this way since Nightmare on Elm Street.
All
Um,
right. Yeah.
and it's kind of got that vibe in how they do some of the kills because they're creative. It's not Michael Myers walking in with a knife or
Right.
or fucking fluorescent light bulb stabbing you in the throat. Um,
Yeah. Shit.
it's just like crazy shit. There's fucking chains, man. There's chains with claws at the end of them that have like sentience or something almost, and they're just fucking grabbing people. But
The sound
yeah, there's
effects too on that.
the sound
chain
effects.
sound
Oh.
effects.
Yeah.
It's like because we hear Matt goes into the bathroom after because he runs to the scene to get to Riley, and he
Yeah.
finds her and he accidentally stabs. Okay, so stupid, by the way. He accidentally stabs himself on this box, and there was. I think that's one of those things where it's like, we got to kind of move this along a little bit. We need him to be marked. So he's going to accidentally grab the knife. So it's like, okay. But that's probably one of my complaints about the movie is it's when stupid decisions like that happen. I know, obviously.
That's
try
just
to-
a horror movie thing, though.
Yeah, I know,
like,
exactly.
all of them.
Exactly.
And I think this is actually one of the better ones where it's, like,
With those.
actually scary the whole time.
Yeah.
And, like, the main character is stupid, as always, but there wouldn't be a movie without it.
And it's like, and then he goes into the bathroom at the playground to like wash the blood away, and then these fucking hallways, dude, opening up all over the place to go into this like Leviathan's domain where the Cenobites are from. All of this looked incredible. I have in my notes in all capital letters hallways.
Yeah.
Because these hallways, dude, the way that they open up out of nowhere into walls in the back of a van at one point.
Scary.
It looks damn good, and it's like that's some quality special effects right there, and it was always very interesting because I've always been like a fan of like secret passageways and stuff built into houses. So always to be able to see something on this level, literally appear from another dimension is very, very intriguing to me, and it looks very compelling on screen.
Well, if we're going to talk about hallways, we should talk about the other, like, major scenes with the hallways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What comes to mind?
The van scene and then the Selena scene.
Yes.
Right.
That one was crazy for hallways. I actually think that might be like one of my favorites because
Yeah.
she's like running and she's like, trying to get
Yeah.
out of this, even though she knows like there's no escape. Like
Because she worked for
doomed.
Voight.
Exactly. She's like 100% doomed and she knows that.
It's the older lady, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, her name is Selena. And she gets Riley and Trevor end up going to her for help. I forget exactly how they find her. Maybe they did some research and some shit like that to try and find her. But they end up going to her for help on the puzzle box, and they have like this argument where Selena tries to take the box away and she ends up getting stabbed with it, and then they just leave, and then
and take the box.
of course, and take the box. But man, then Selena starts like she's on like an oxygen mask. She's like not doing the best, and they put her in this room, and as she's being wheeled down the hallways. She's looking into the other like hospital rooms and seeing hallways come out of the walls and shit. And then they put her in this hospital room, and the whole like wall shifts farther away from her, and the hallway outside opens up, and then the asphyx. I don't know how I pronounce that.
I would say asphyx.
Asphyx.
Asphyxiation.
Yeah.
Asphyx.
Yeah. Comes out, and the way that thing moves, because it's blind, so it's just going off of like hearing, and it's like all wrapped up. It looks so scary.
Yeah.
What did you think about this scene, Benny?
So with this specific scene, I remember this was around the time that like I stopped the first time due to just like being tired in general. But this one kind of tripped me out. I was like, whoa, okay, this is really kind of cool because I didn't realize it until watching it again today. When I don't remember how it actually turned out, but it was when what is it, Selena or is it Serena? I think it's Serena.
Is it? I think it was Selena.
I think it's Serena.
Let me see. But go on.
But regardless, yeah. So when she was like trying to move away, like was trying to run away or whatever, I just remember like watching that and I was like, oh my gosh. Like she already knows ahead of time what's going on. Like you said, she already had the idea that all that stuff was going to go on. But I don't know. I just really kind of loved how everything really just kind of it kind of took it away from her being at a hospital. I think she was at.
Yeah.
Or whatever, like whatever
Like,
place.
it's probably like a
Like,
hospice home type thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. But it took her away from that area, and it like literally put her basically all in that one, like in that place of the. I don't even how would we describe that. Like
What,
just in that
the
hallway.
Cenobite area?
Yeah, like
so
the
I think,
domain of the Cenobite.
yeah, no, I think it's called Leviathan's domain.
Yes, Leviathan's domain. Yep, you're right. So
It
just,
also
I
is
love
Selena
the
for sure.
transition from it.
But continue.
It is Selena. Okay, cool. Thank you. That's what I just want to make sure. I didn't know for a fact,
Yeah.
but yeah, no, I literally just love that transition from literally that hospital, whatever,
And she's there.
to the domain. Like it's just
Dude,
whoa.
She turns the
And it was, like, so
corner.
smooth.
She turns the corner and there's this thing that's like spinning down the hallway. And it's very, very obviously human skin, like as like a sail basically for this. Like it's like a windmill. It's a skin mill. It's disgusting. It's just horrible, dude. But I thought the Leviathan's domain looked fucking awesome in this movie. Like, I think it was one of the most compelling things about this, the way that they had them. They were not safe anywhere. Like, there's that point where they're driving in the van because their roommate Nora has been marked for sacrifice. And they're driving in this van, and she's like, I hear bells. And it's like, and we hear like the sound effects and like the score, and it's interesting that that's probably exactly what the people marked for sacrifice are hearing too. It's a very cool idea there, but they're driving away and like all of these hallways are opening up on the road as they drive, and then the Cenobites are just like, fuck this, we're gonna open the doorway in the van.
Oh my gosh.
Dude, it's one of the coolest shots in the whole movie when Nora's like looking around all dazed and then she's looking at the driver's seats and everything, and they're arguing and they're like stretching farther and farther away from them. And she's like, what is happening? And suddenly she turns around and she's in the Leviathan's domain, and like the front of the car is like miles away. And then you just can't see them anymore. And then this scene with Nora is, wow. She ends up being put into this chain. She gets to see, what is it? The Chatterer, Pinhead, and one other one. It might be the Mask.
The gas.
The gas,
no, yeah,
maybe?
you're right. It was the Mask.
Because you only get to see the mother briefly near the end of the movie. Is that right? Or is that when Selena is being taken? I don't know. Somewhere, but whatever.
No, it's towards the end.
Towards the end of the movie. And then she ends up being put into these chains, and she's like, please God, and then Pinhead comes up and is like, or the priest, I don't know. She's technically called the priest, I guess, but everybody knows her as Pinhead. She comes up and she's like, what do you pray for? And she's like, I think she says salvation is what she says. And this is when Pinhead takes one of the pins out of her head. It's a very aptly named character, I'd say, and shoves this pin into Nora's like artery. Whoa, I forget what it's called. The artery here. It's like
Carotid.
the carotid artery, and she shoves this pin through the artery, and we get a fucking. We look into the artery. That's where the camera is. It's like inside her vein, and it is disgusting as this pin comes through this little tube and then shoves itself into the other side. It is.
Well, I was trying to figure out, were we seeing
throat?
inside the artery or through her esophagus?
Maybe the esophagus, actually. You're right, because it was like, you're right, it was the esophagus. That's a good point.
I thought it was doing like this, yeah, and it was doing this
Yeah.
type of breathing thing.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. That's a good point. So it goes through her esophagus, and we get to see inside of her esophagus, and it's disgusting.
Very CSI.
And then it ends with Riley looking in the driver's mirror, the rear view mirror, and seeing Pinhead's face in the mirror. And then she turns around as fucking Nora's entire back gets peeled off of her. And man, I think wow, that was I don't know what else to say about that. It was a whole level of fucked up.
I think that's where I howled.
Yeah.
Went onto the floor and
Yeah, I think so too.
I think that might be it. But man, I wanna talk about something real quick. I wanna say, what was everybody's favorite like kill in this movie? I wanna start with Benny. What do you think your favorite kill of this movie was?
That's tough. I would say probably. Okay. I would either say one of two things. One, it could be the very first kill of the movie, just because of like his like screaming and everything outside of it. You could just tell he just like was in immense pain.
Yeah, that was pretty well done.
Or I would say Trevor, because
Sliced
of
up
like
like a-
the actual actual like
So gross.
skin peeling and everything. Like, oh
Yeah. Like I think
Yeah.
what happened, like his face gets like peeled off. I think too, like during that. And
Yes.
it's like yeesh.
literally gets pulled right in the mouth,
Yeah,
right
yeah.
in the face, like right there, just pulls. I'm like, oh, okay,
Dude.
yep, that was terrifying.
Dude, yeah, I feel that. How about you, Jonathan?
I still swear there's like a kill that I am blanking out on, where I was talking about the editing, so I'll find that out today. But I'll just say Nora, the
The
van
back.
one with this,
Yeah.
yeah, just because that was where I was like, oh man, you know, we've hit the threshold of I think what we can accomplish here in this movie, and then they do end up finding ways to ramp
Yeah.
it up. But
It's so gross.
but even by that point, I was like, fuck.
I've got the movie over. I've got the movie over here on the on the left screen, and I was looking through. So what for kills? We've got Joey in the beginning of the movie, who gets put onto the chains and is just screaming his ass off. Then we've got
brother.
Matt.
Mhm.
I'm gonna try and go into order so that way hopefully I don't miss anyone. Matt, who we actually don't get to see. We get to see that point where he like gets pulled up in his dream through the chains. But one of the things about the sound effects of this movie is that we get to see where we get to hear the chains, and we already know, just because the way that the movie starts with Joey getting like ripped apart by the chain, not ripped apart, but like pulled up by the chains and like dragged into for sacrifice. It's all very audio based because you don't see a lot of it, and chains make a very distinct sound. So the fact that we get introduced to them right off the bat, and we now know that sound is associated to those chains, and then all we hear at the playground is Matt inside the bathroom screaming, and we hear the chains. But we don't see him get taken. We just hear it, because by the time that Riley gets in there, he's gone already.
And the blood bubbling up in the sink.
Yes, and the blood bubbling.
Yeah, that was.
Yeah, that was a really cool one. So Matt's death was very cool. As we rank people dying, I think Selena is a cool idea because we get to see we get to see 4 of the Cenobites, and then she sticks this like thing down Selena's throat. Like, she pulls it out of the eye of the Weeper and shoves it down Selena's throat, and this is when she says, "Save your breath" for screaming. I don't know what she was doing about that. Maybe she was trying to, like, stop her airflow or something, but I thought that was cool.
So excited to watch this again.
Yeah, it was. I watched most of it again this morning, but I didn't get to finish it for a second time.
But you didn't see red, is what you're saying?
I didn't see red.
You only saw blue.
Only saw blue. How about you? I know it's hard for you to rank those things because it was like.
Well, I was about to say that I'm not gonna pick a favorite, but I'm gonna say like the most impactful one, in my opinion, was either Miss Nora or Mr. Voight at the end.
Yeah.
That was a little. I don't know if that was a kill per se, or I don't know what to label that as, but I guess in a way, like definitely losing his humanity. So
Yeah, because look at that shit. Good God.
that
Because
one was a.
I think that was definitely the hardest thing to. Yeah, dude, that was the hardest thing to watch in this entire movie. Was definitely because what happens to Voight is that he's been missing for these 6 years since during the time jump because he's been stuck. Yeah, exactly. They think he's been dead. He's been stuck in his house because he's got this thing through his chest that is one of the Cenobites' gifts to him. And yeah, quote unquote gifts, and it's the gift of sensation because that's what he thought he wanted. He thought he wanted that because his whole life has been based about sexual conquest. He's got a fuck dungeon under his house, so it's like that's what he's about. So he picks sensation, and then the sensation is torture and pain because that's what the Cenobites pick as sensation. They picture pain as a far more powerful sensation than pleasure. They can't distinguish the two things. So
Well, no, it is to them. Like,
the same,
I
right?
think.
It is pleasure.
Yeah.
But they can't distinguish what humans feel as pleasure to pain because that's just sensation to them, and pain is the most powerful sensation that they can possibly imagine. It's like that's their shit, and it's disgusting.
Right.
But Voight exchange his gift at the end of the movie, and they decide to give him power. And power, I guess, is him being turned into a Cenobite, and we get to watch that in all of its glory, and it's fucking disgusting, dude. It's definitely the hardest thing to watch in this entire movie because, oh man, his skin's getting ripped apart, and it's like, yeah, just look away for a second. Man, it's like a fucking fruit roll-up right here. Look at this shit.
It's a fruit roll up.
I shit you not. It looks like 2 fruit roll-ups. Look at that. I'm sorry.
He's played it like 4 times.
Anyway, I think that was probably the hardest gore to watch in the whole movie. It's definitely either that or it's more satisfying to watch Trevor get sliced up because he's a fucking dickhead.
Yes.
So there's that.
It's kind of a that particular Voight. That's his name.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which like also isn't that the fucking company or Vought?
Vought, yeah,
Vought
in
is
the boys.
the boys.
But that's a throwback to Hellraiser 2 Hellbound. There is a guy that they turn into a Cenobite in that, and almost a relatively similar fashion and appearance, and you don't see it happen the way it does here, though. They trap him in a box. There's like piano wire squeezing against his skin, and then
Piano wire. Right.
there's a weird like tentacle thing that kind of opens up and then it closes and it's
Gross.
pointed and it like goes in his throat.
Ew.
And then the door on this like coffin thing closes, and we come back a few minutes later, and he surfaces, and his skin's white, and now it's like the piano wire is a part of him, but now the tentacles are like a
Are
part
those
of
out
him
of
for
his
some reason.
hands?
I
I think I
don't
saw
remember.
that picture. I think I saw that picture of that. dude.
Maybe, and then I think it must have been Pinhead says to him, like, what is your sensation or something weird like that, and he's like, I'm questioning why I ever resisted, and so you see that now that he's experienced being a Cenobite, that he is like now experiencing pleasure in the way that they do, and then he goes to do his bad shit. But
So gross.
I didn't know it was a callback until I I don't think I'd seen Hellraiser 2 in its entirety until I finished it this morning. I'd seen the first one a number of times, but yeah, so I didn't even realize that was like an Easter egg or a callback until I watched it this morning, and I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, it was very cool. A lot of really cool playing with like chains and the way that they and the wires and like They got very creative with the way that they killed some of these people and sacrificed them to the Leviathan. I thought it was all very well done, but definitely the hardest to watch was probably him being turned into a Cenobite, I think. I mean, what a way to end the movie. Like, that's what it leaves you with, you know what I mean? It's like, that's the last thing that you see about this movie, and then it rolls credits. So, like, you're walking away from the TV being like, ugh.
See, I thought that was great that they did that, though.
Yeah. It leaves you thinking about it,
like,
for
I
sure.
didn't want to watch it, but, like, the fact that they did it was, like...
Strong stamp at the end of the
Right.
movie.
Exactly. I mean, I feel like the plot of the whole movie was very strong.
Yeah, about this, like the themes of addiction, because everyone has their vice. Voight's vice was pleasure, and then he thought that sensation was pleasure, and then here he ends up being tortured for 6 years continuously, not being able to ever go numb to the pain, and
Right.
that Voight has his addiction, Riley has his addiction. It's like that's a very strong theme of this movie, and one of the things that I noticed this morning when I rewatched it, there's a line that Matt says to Riley when they're arguing. He says to Riley, "You want to play games? You're gonna lose, Riley." And damn, is he fucking spot on. That's some pretty solid foreshadowing, and like, going back and seeing that at the end of the movie, because by the end, Riley loses everybody except for Matt's boyfriend, Colin. Everybody else dies to this treasure box, to this puzzle box. And she, at the end, after Voight takes his new gift of power, goes and says that she rejects the Cenobites' gifts, and she doesn't want any of them. And they're like, so you choose to live with the weight of everything that has happened here, every person that you've lost, all the things, the vile things that you've done, all of this. You choose to live with it and simply get nothing in return. You choose the lament configuration. So it's like her rejecting the gifts, anything in return, was one of their gifts. So I thought that was a really cool way to end the movie. It's like, they still win. They still get. They're like impressed with her. Like, that's why that she chooses that configuration. They're like, you choose the lament configuration. It's like, and it's like they're nodding in approval, and it's like,
Yeah, they're like, you want to spend your whole life thinking about what you did to these people.
and damn, that's a fucking gut punch right there, man. I think that was really, really well done. Really good writing. The Cenobites still win. It's like, even though Riley lives and Colin lives, it's like, now they're saddled with that shit for the rest of their life. They're like, here, enjoy your trauma. Have a good time in therapy. Good luck.
I feel like what was really notable to me was the whole storyline with Voight, because they, throughout the whole movie, describe him as like this like terrible person who's done like horrible things to other people and like very sadistic and all these other things, and like you're going through the whole movie thinking that, especially because you get to see that scene with him at the beginning, and you're like, this guy doesn't give a crap about anybody else, like he's doing all these horrible things just for himself. And then you also get to see like the box described as like bringing you gifts, like it gives you, like, you get a reward, you know. So it's like you're thinking it's something, like you think reward, and it in your head it's like it has a positive connotation, you know. And then you get to the end and he's so like destroyed by this gift that he got that he doesn't even want it, and he's like, just take it back. Like, I don't care, these people are evil, like talking about the Cenobites, he thinks they're evil, he's like caged them in, and he's like, go bring your god and tell him I don't want this. And it's like this whole thing, he's trapped them like with the whole like cages that he puts on his house. And it's crazy because to me that was like mind-blowing, and you kind of feel, they make you feel bad for him, this like terrible person that's done horrible things, and you feel bad for him because all he wants is just to be normal. So I thought that was really good, and they're like, okay, well, we can't take it back, but they fix him up just to destroy him again. And it's crazy. Like, in my brain, that was like mind-blowing. So that was really good to me.
I'm trying to find this point. So if anyone else has some thoughts they want to give out, please go for it. Because I'm trying to find this point in the movie where she reads this book at Voight's estate and finds the different configurations. And I just wanted to read them.
Yeah, it's like love, life, knowledge, sensation, power.
Is that all of them?
I think.
Right.
I think there was 5 of them.
But yeah, Benny, what are your thoughts on like the straightforward plot, like the writing of this movie as we close out?
I thought the writing in the movie was actually fantastic. I loved how a lot of things were kind of drawn back to, like, they were kind of drawn together and everything. So like when it came to, of course, big thing about me, I love music, as everyone knows.
Yeah, the music was awesome.
Fantastic. Even just like the sound effects in general were just fantastic. Everything kind of like went along with the journey. So like the music kind of slowly transitioned to it being a thing where, like, when you first hear it, you're like, okay, cool. It's something that's like kind of giving you that thing, giving you that sensation, like, oh, some stuff is going to happen very soon. Then all of a sudden it starts taking off, and then it's like, okay, wow, some stuff is happening right now. And then even to the very end, like the very last part, or the very last scene when Voight was getting like changed to a sense of mind. Like, I promise, I want to say that was one of my favorite, like, it was one of my favorite sound effects, but also some of my favorite like music and kind of like atmosphere with that.
It was almost like I'm trying to remember if I remember this correctly, but it was like angelic almost. Like it was trying to, because that's one of the things. It's like I think one of the quotes of one of the taglines of the original movie is "angel to some, demons to others," or something like that, to describe these things.
Along that line,
because they portray him like on the cross, like Jesus at the end, like he's like this religious figure, and it makes sense because that is their religion. But yeah, it's like this like gospel kind of music. If I'm not mistaken, that's what it was. That's what it was like, right?
You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's on the
it was
cross.
very angelic.
And there's like light. Like,
yeah, it's all white.
Like, it's just like brightness.
It's like heaven.
Yeah, kind
So
of.
fucked up, man. So fucked up.
And that's interesting too, because he says like, "Just let me die," and he asks like for heaven, and then like, okay.
And that's what he gets. That's You're right. He does. Yeah.
So that's what they give him in their own twisted way.
So fucked up. I found the frame from the movie. So the lament configuration is it's when the box is like in the box form, like it's like a cube, like a Rubik's cube. The lament is life. Lore is the next one that it takes afterwards, that when it changes in the playground while Riley's watching it and Matt's in the bathroom, it changes into the lore configuration, which is knowledge. Then this kind of starburst looking one is Laudrant, which is love, yeah. And then you've got, what does that even say? Sensation, and then power, but I wanted to...
It says resurrection.
Lazarus, resurrection, right. And then Leviathan is the final configuration, power, which is cool because the box takes on the exact form of the Leviathan, of the actual god that they commune with, because we see the Leviathan come in from his dimension. It kind of pulls the whole estate into the Leviathan domain, and we see the Leviathan, who is basically a gigantic version of the Leviathan configuration on the puzzle box. He's like this big double-edged spike. Looks very, very cool. I'd be interested to see if they continue this reboot as like a series, and see if they do like another, like a sequel to this, because I'm interested to learn more about the Leviathan himself, because we don't get to learn too much about them and their domain. We do get to see it a decent amount, but we don't get to see like, yeah, he's this gigantic box kind of thing, but like, is he a creature in there, or is he just an entity? You know what I mean? So I'd be curious to see where they go, if they go anywhere with these, because hopefully this movie is a success, because I mean, it's pretty damn good, so hopefully they get to do more in this vein. So yeah, overall I love this thing. I thought it was really, really good. I thought before we get to the end though, I do want to give a shout out to the acting in this movie, because I'd say most of it is pretty fucking well done. Like, especially Riley, who is, Odessa Azion. I thought she was fantastic in this film.
She was really good.
She was damn good. I think the only person I didn't really care for, like, acting-wise, was probably Matt's boyfriend, Colin. I thought he was probably, like, the weakest link in the movie. I just personally did... Like, the way he spoke, like, about, like, certain things, I just didn't buy the stuff that he was selling me. I don't know. It just didn't...
So you hate gay people?
Yes, exactly. No, obviously not. Because I thought Matt was great. I thought
Matt was good.
her brother, I thought he was fantastic in the movie. And, like, the point where he comes down Riley comes down into the dungeon and sees Matt in the mirror, and she's like, "Is that you, Matt?" And he turns around and he's like, "Do you want it to be?" And then he goes and hugs her, or hugs him, or she goes and hugs him, and then we see him in the mirror, and he is this no-skinned creature. You do see the muscle, and just like the muscular system on him, and he's like bloody and stuff, and you see like her hands like squish onto him as she's hugging him. It's like gross, but I thought he did a really good job. Like their argument, I thought was really believable.
Yeah, it was.
So yeah, I just thought, so pretty much all the acting in this movie, pretty damn good. So good on them for getting a lot of, mostly I thought, like, people that I had never seen in anything else before. I don't know if Jamie Clayton's done some other stuff, but she was pretty damn good as Pinhead. Very, 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 like, composed and purposeful, and, like,
I liked Pinhead a lot.
Yeah.
Like, the character
very well done.
and the acting was good.
So yeah, anyone have any other spotlights on the acting they wanted to talk about?
No, I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, then that's pretty much all I got for you, ladies and gentlemen. Pretty strong movie, a pretty damn good reboot. I'd say probably one of the better reboots that I've seen in recent years. I'm trying to think of one that is even as good as this, because usually reboots do not do very well. Because the only thing that comes to mind is Halloween 2018, but that's a sequel. It's not a reboot. It's like it's a retcon for a lot of things, for a lot of the other movies, but it's a sequel. It's a continuation of the series. But this is Hellraiser, or it's adapting Hellraiser from the novella in a different way than the previously was done. So I think if they can get more teams like this onto reboots, if Hollywood's trying to cycle out old ideas and make them new and better and more improved, man, maybe take a look at this team and try to follow suit to what they did here, because pretty solid job. But I suppose a little biased because I never saw the original Hellraiser, so I don't really have the comparison. But I personally don't know how it could have been better than this, but I'll have to check it out and make a more definitive statement there. But yeah, go see the movie. Get a Hulu subscription. They've got free trials if your pockets are empty, but go for it.
And then maybe get a therapist after that.
Yeah, maybe. I want to thank you guys for hopping on the podcast today. Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you, Benny. Appreciate both of you. And, of course, thank you, Andrea, for joining as a first-time guest on here. We will be doing 3 more this month, okay? We've got lined up Midsummer. We've got The Thing, John Carpenter's The Thing, and we've got Scream. So those are the 3 movies that we're going to be doing over the course of the month. Probably going to be either Saturday, Sundays, or I know that on the 22nd we will be busy, so we will not be able to do it on that weekend day. So we'll have to figure something out. Might be a weekday. We'll figure everything out, and I'll keep you all updated. But keep looking out for what we're going to be doing. I haven't decided exactly which movie we're going to be doing next after this. I was thinking about Midsummer, but I want Andrea to be able to be there for that one, and she's got some prior obligations this weekend. So we might do Scream next weekend instead, and we'll talk about that. Perhaps I'll let you guys know. Check the Discord channel for updates, and you'll be able to catch all that stuff there. And until next time, ladies and gents, anyone got any final closing thoughts? All good?
Bye. Have a good day. I'll see you next time. Bye.
Perfect.
Bye.
Take care, guys. Have a good one.